Hello and welcome to Shell Point Today. I'm Adam Brown. We hope that everyone had a wonderful Christmas weekend and is looking forward to the new year. Now, through January 1st, we are bringing you some of what we feel were the top segments and stories of 2016. So sit back, relax, and enjoy these stories from Shell Point Today.
So, have you ever wondered how your apartment stays so nice and cool during these really hot summer months? Well, we're about to find out today as we take a tour of the chiller plant. We're going to go inside and meet Paul Bertonis, and he's going to give us a tour and show us some of this fascinating equipment. Just one of these chillers can cool the equivalent of 400 homes. That's a lot. There's a lot of power, a lot of equipment here, and so let's go see what happens at the chiller plant. Well, we're inside the chiller plant, and I have Paul Bertonis with me, and he is the facility operations manager for this mammoth place that makes a lot of noise but keeps everything really cool. And especially this time of year, we all like to stay cool.
Yes, we do.
So, Paul, tell me a little bit about, I guess this is the Operations Control Center and a lot of this stuff and how you control it here and really what does the chiller plant do as opposed to just having a regular commercial air conditioning unit like you would see in someone else's home?
Well, this is the office here. Everything is on automation here, so we can know what's going on at any given time through our smartphone or through a computer system. It is alarmed, it's monitored. The purpose of a central plant is actually to save electricity. Now, if you have your regular DX unit, which particularly runs about 1.2 or 3 kW per ton, this plant runs about 8.8 kW per ton. Wow. So the savings is right there. It also gives us lots of diversification, so if something goes down, Shell Point is not without any cooling for as many residents as it takes care of. From this point, it will take care of the 80% of the island, all of Eagle Preserve, and everything at the Woodlands.
That's incredible. And so the name chiller plant tells me it's not typical air, compressor unit like you would have. It chills something, right? So in layman's terms, tell us exactly what happens here.
There is refrigerant, but we're actually chilling water as our main purpose of a coolant. And we have we have 4 dedicated water chillers that run during regular hours, and we have 3 dedicated ice chillers that will make ice that will melt during peak hours of the day, which gives us a huge savings in our electric.
So, Paul, you're making ice during the nighttime and you're melting ice during the daytime. Explain to us simply what that means.
Simply, when we are making ice, the electricity is cheaper. There is not a demand for it. We melt ice during the hottest points of the day when electricity is in demand and everybody is using their air conditioners to cool everything.
So the cost of electricity basically is cheaper at night, and that's when you use the most of it.
Yes. We save anywhere from $40,000 to $50,000 a month in electricity.
Wow, that's a lot. So when this ice melts, it's chilled water that goes through pipes. Is that how it works?
Yes, but actually there is glycol, so it will not freeze. Just like antifreeze in your car.
Okay, all right.
It freezes the water, but will not freeze the machinery.
Okay. Before we go out and look at some of these tanks and some of this impressive equipment, is there anything you can show us here on the computer of how or you monitor this and what is monitored or controlled?
Okay, this is what the plant is running. This is all automated points, and I can tell what is running, how much, what pumps are running, anything that's running, anything that goes out of line, we do get alarms. And they will notify myself plus a couple other people. We'll also get alarms from FP&L if there's any power interruptions, so we can make sure that everything comes back online after the power is restored. As you can see here, right now we're leaving the plant at 43.9 degree water. We're coming back at 49.6. We're roughly pumping about 6,800 gallons of water through the system, and which the system consists of about 5 miles of underground pipe from this plant to the furthest point at Turbine. All right, this system here goes out through all the property, which we can monitor all the buildings on the island, the woodlands, and Eagle Preserve. The only thing we do not monitor here is individual units. So at any given point, if somebody complains in a common area, church, pharmacy, any building of that, we can look and determine if we need to send somebody. We can also make adjustments to pumps, to thermostats, to controls, to systems right from here without having to leave unless we absolutely necessary have to.
All right, Paul, well, we're going to go out here now and take the nickel tour of this massive facility, and you can show us everything and what it does.
Okay, let's go.
Hey, what's something good to show? First this. Okay, Paul, so we're out here now at the facility, and it's really loud out here, so we're trying to talk a little louder, but this is what you called the leaving pumps. So what does that mean? Something's leaving?
This is the pumps that deliver the chill water throughout the system, which delivers water to Eagle Preserve, the woodlands, and to the island. This provides all the cooling out of this plant to all the individual air handlers and stuff needed.
So that noise that I'm hearing, is that the pumps that are running?
Yes, it is. Actually, we're on quiet time now. The plant actually is 3 times as loud during normal operation. We're in our ice melt mode now, which to us it's quiet.
Wow, so do you wear some kind of ear protection when you're out here, or are you just used to it?
No, if we're going to be out here long term, we will put ear protection in. But as you need, just walking through the plant, it's not necessary. It's based on a 8-hour constant noise level.
Okay, so these pumps are sending everything out to the different communities. What happens next? Where do we go now?
Okay, the first chiller we're going to come to now is what we call one of our dedicated ice chillers, and the next 2 following it are also, their sole purpose is to make ice. They are each 1,200 tons, which they will take all 3 of them running from 9:30 this evening when we shift our load to approximately 8 a.m. in the morning to freeze all 240 ice tanks out back.
Now, what's the maintenance of all these? Do you pretty much install these and they just run forever, or do you have to do something from time to time?
Oh, no, there are 4 maintenances done a year on each chiller. That is done by an outside vendor, which Trane will maintain them for us. That's why we maintain them the best that we can, never saying there's ever going to be not a failure, but we do have some redundancy built in, some diversification. So if something does happen here, there's means to change things around and keep everybody happy and cool.
So one pump going down is not going to be a detriment to everything. You've got enough redundancy to keep going.
Oh, we have spare pumps. As you can see, there's one motor there that will take care of an evap. We do have every spare part that we know we can change, because we're not going to order something and get it off the shelf and have it here tomorrow. So we have a spare pump for every size pump we have here. We have spare motors for our towers. We have seals. We have breakers. If the breaker fails, we can get up and going within a few hours.
It's almost like you have your own parts department right here, because it's not like you can go pick this stuff up at Walmart in the middle of the night.
No, we can't. So that's why it was given to us that we do maintain any of our larger parts that we cannot get shipped the next day. Okay, so all the pipes that have the yellow banding are on the glycol system. There's about 50,000 gallons worth of glycol, 50,000 gallons of glycol in this system. And that's the identification, so we know that has glycol. The green banded pipes are just regular chill water. Total in the system between the plant and the underground is about 500,000 gallons of water in the system. This pump we're facing right now is a glycol pump. It circulates the glycol through one of the ice tanks, which we'll go out and see shortly. Okay, now we're coming up on our ice tanks, which we call it our ice farm, which there is 240 of these tanks. There are 120 upstairs and there are 120 downstairs. Yeah, it's just a solid chunk of ice in there with a coil that runs down with the glycol, runs through that, and just through thermo expansion, I'm going to say, is the easiest term, that it will melt the ice. Glycol pumps, the heat exchangers that we're running inside is what will melt it because it's a different temperature. One of these tanks, if it was not online for any purpose, it would take approximately a week to melt. 7 to 10 days to melt it.
So 240 of these tanks you have to keep this place going.
That's correct. And if we do any more expansion and we decide to go with the same thing, we'll have to add more tanks and additional chillers. But we are pretty much maxed out here.
So Paul, what are we looking at here?
Actually, we're looking at one of the cooling towers. Each set of these goes to a chiller inside, which actually cools the machine down and cools the refrigerant. We use water for cooling instead of air.
So how many of these are here?
Okay, this, I'm going to call it a cell. This first cell is 600 tons. There are 2 of them per chiller in there because the chiller is 1,200 tons. So we did it on 2-cell purpose because during the winter you may not have to run both towers to cool this machine.
But in the summer it takes 2 of them to cool one machine.
Oh yeah, it does.
Okay, Paul, so where are we now down here in the bottom?
I would call this the hot side of the plant. This is where your pumps are that would send the heated water up through the towers so they can cool the chiller upstairs. And on to your right over there, or your left, my right, are all the boilers that would send the hot water for the heating of the Woodlands property and Eagle Preserve, which also goes through a heat exchanger, which gives all those buildings their domestic water. There are no boilers, no hot water heaters, nothing in that portion of the property. It all comes from this plant.
Okay, Paul, so I see that even if you're not here on the property, you can address some of the issues. Is that right?
That's correct, Rich. You asked the question what it would take to bring another piece of equipment online if we weren't here. Well, we can go through our smartphones. Right now we are bringing up the plant. Just give it a minute to load and you'll have the same picture on my screen on my phone as I will have in my office.
Look at that.
So we are actually looking at the plant. It could be anywhere you have a Wi-Fi connection or 4G or whatever, and you can bring it up, make all your changes, and there's no interruption. It also gives me time, if I change something around, to get here and assess why it went down and make repairs, so we always have that unit on standby. But I'm going to say 80% of the time it can be fixed through an app.
That's much better than the good old days when you had to get in your car and drive all the way down here.
Yeah, it is. Not saying I don't wind up here a few nights. Like last couple weeks, I was here, from 12 at night to about 4:30 in the morning, which nobody knew what was going on because the place was cool. But I know I had to get things back up and running for when the temperature was warmer during the daytime.
So if you want to thank someone for keeping you cool in these hot summer months, this is the man right here. Mr. Paul Batonis is on the job day or night.
Basically, yeah.
Pretty much like the mail.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Okay, Melody, the last thing on our agenda is we've got to promote Money Week.
Okay, I know that it's important for our residents. I really want to promote it well, so let's go for it.
Okay, you get right on it, and I'll be back soon.
Okay, sounds good. Money Week, how do we promote?
And welcome back to Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? I'm Regis Philgreen. And we have here Melody Desalegn, who has answered the $500,000 question. Melody, for $1 million, the question is, who or what is the best guiding resource for Philanthropic Council, generational gifting, daily money management, and estate and fiduciary services? A politician, B, the internet, C, the Legacy Foundation, or D, your mother-in-law? Melody, for $1 million, what is your answer?
You know, I'm going to have to use a lifeline on this. My gut says one thing, but I'd like to be 100% sure.
Melody, you have one lifeline left. Would you like to phone a friend?
Yes, that is the only lifeline I have left. Now, the irony does not escape me on this one. My phone a friend is actually going to be my mother-in-law.
All right, and what is your mother-in-law's name?
Susan Desalegn.
Susan. Well, we'll have our friends at AT&T get a hold of Susan, and you can ask your question.
Hello?
Susan. Yes, we have Melody here. She is about to answer the question for $1 million. Now, she wants to ask you a question. The next voice you hear will be Melody.
Hi, Mama Son. It's so nice to hear your voice, but I got to wrap this up. Who or what is the best guiding resource for Philanthropic Council, generational gifting, daily money management, and estate and fiduciary services? A politician, B, the internet, C, the Legacy Foundation, or D, your mother-in-law? What's your thoughts on this?
Gee, Melody, I'm not really sure. My reaction is to choose a politician because they're well-versed in programs and services.
That's your gut reaction? That's your final answer on this?
I'm sorry, Melody. That's the best answer. Good luck. Love you.
Okay. Hope to see you soon. Love you. Bye.
Now, Melody, your mother-in-law suggested you answer a politician, A. Now, what is your answer?
I am going to go with letter C, the Legacy Foundation.
All right, is that your final answer?
Final answer.
And the answer is C, the Legacy Foundation. Melody Desalegn, you have won $1 million. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we have a millionaire here, Melody Desalegn.
Melody,
Oh, hey, Jeff. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. Did you come up with the idea for the Money Week promotion?
Yeah, I have a few good ideas swirling around. What did you come up with?
I'm thinking we just do a Shell Point TV commercial. You interview me.
Do you think that's the best way to promote this?
I think so. You know what? That's my final answer.
What in the world? I gotta check my bank account.
I consider myself to be a New Yorker, and I was raised in the Bronx and went to wonderful parochial schools, gave me a great education, sound values, strong religious faith, and a great love for this country. And some of the values included service. And they drummed that into me, and I took it to heart. When I graduated from college, and remember, I lived in New York City, and I knew what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to be a teacher. I didn't want to be a nurse. I didn't want to be a secretary. I wanted to be in communications, and that was my major. But there really weren't opportunities for women at that time, that was 1968, to go into professional communications for a company. We had a career day, and among the employers was the military. And they said, if you come to the Air Force, we will train you, we will put you in a management position, and we will give you experiences that you cannot get in the private sector. That sounded pretty fabulous to me. So I took my test and I scored very high, and they invited me to go to a place called Lackland Air Force Base, which is in Texas. And there I went through Officers Candidate School. And I frankly couldn't believe what they were asking me to do, including getting up at 5 in the morning, marching out with no makeup on in what seemed like the middle of the night to have breakfast, and then do our chores and get to class all day and have a very rigorous 90-day program. I stuck it out. They promised me a position in communications and public affairs, and because I was an officer, it was going to be a management position. M16 training is routine for every officer candidate. At that time, women were not allowed to be in combat. And my roommate, who was ideal for me, she was a graphic artist, and the two of us were kind of creative and fun-loving, and there was M16 rifle training on a Saturday morning, very early. So we went to our captain and we said, would it be possible for us to skip this? Because we know we're not going into harm's way. We don't see any reason for us to have this kind of training, and we frankly would appreciate being able to sleep in, because having limited sleep was a problem. And he agreed. So we were at least 2 officer candidates that never went through M16 training, and we were very fortunate. So I was getting the best of both worlds, management experience plus public affairs and communications background. My first assignment was at Moody Air Force Base, Georgia, and that's an air training command. And I was assigned to do community relations, to do news articles, to interface with the media, to develop news stories for the base. And I worked for fine people. Some of the finest people that I have ever worked for were people in the Air Force. I was treated with a great deal of respect. I was encouraged. They were interested in me and my career and what I wanted to do, and I did very well. My next assignment was overseas, and I am the Vietnam era veteran group. And I was assigned to Taipei, to a remote, isolated tour. The name of the air station was Shalenko, outside of Taipei. It was on a mountain, on the top of a mountain, and we were surrounded by Chinese military. We were very safe. This was during the time of Chiang Kai-shek, and it was also a time when Taiwan was ousted from the UN. It was a very exciting, interesting place to work. We did a lot of community relations. We interfaced with Chinese, English as a second language. Many of the staff on station were linguists, and it was an amazing opportunity for me. The last assignment that I had was coming back to the States in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And I must say, I'm not a winter person. And I was going to be assigned to do radio and television for the base, which was a Strategic Air Command base. And at that time, I became pregnant, and I felt, even though I could stay in service, the rules allowed for it, I didn't feel comfortable being in service, and I asked to be discharged. So I served a total of about 3.5 years, and that was my military experience. It certainly benefited me when I went looking for a job, and the next stop was actually Washington, D.C., and I had a very long career working in different federal agencies and in the private sector in D.C. The discipline that I learned in the service, the experiences that I had, always benefited me throughout my civil service career. And that ended in 2001. And I had more than 30 years of service, and I was age 55. And it was the end of the Clinton administration, the beginning of the Bush administration. And I thought the sun, moon, and stars had come together. And I was married to a military man. My husband is a retired full colonel from the Air Force. The decision to come to Shell Point was my initiative. I was 61 when I moved into Shell Point with my husband and I, and came to Oakmont. And we were pretty young to be doing that. But I felt that the time was right. We have 2 organizations that focus on knitting, and one of them is called Knitters Anonymous. So I found on the internet through my research that veterans hospitals and veterans nursing homes were looking for lap robes, 3x5 robes that could, it's like a small Afghan, that they could be knit or crocheted, and it's a token of appreciation, a thank you, a hug, if you will, to the veterans. And I presented the idea to the group, and they loved it. And so last year, we donated 61 lap robes to 2 hospitals and a nursing home in Florida. And this year, more than 50 have been made by the ladies, and they will be donated before the end of the year. The United States, this country, and its heritage, and the pride that we have in this nation and its military are part of me. I feel as though it's in my DNA.
Thanks for joining us for today's show. Be sure to return tomorrow when we'll have more of the best of 2016 to show you. Don't forget, we will be off the air January 2nd through the 8th, and we'll return January 9th with the Shell Point Today program in a new format. We hope that you'll be looking forward to that. Until then, I'm Adam Brown, thanking you for watching, and on behalf of everyone here at Shell Point TV, we hope you're enjoying the holidays. Goodbye, everyone.